What is up? Welcome to Club Fantasy's DFS and Chill. After arguably the best divisional games we've ever seen in a single weekend, we are on to the conference championships. There are 4 teams left in this thing. They all play today. It's time to talk some DFS. This is our last show of the season. Couldn't have picked a better guest. So I want to start by welcoming to the show. Kyra will be with us. She's having some technical difficulties, but that just gives Chris time to introduce himself. Chris, welcome back, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. No, to be honest with you, you get on a lot of broadcasts, you meet a lot of folks, and I'm not just saying this just to say it because I'm here with you live now, but literally no other place I'd rather be right now. And not to sound like an egomaniac, but being pulled in a lot of different directions today to do other stuff. I had to decline because I'm tired. I want to be in peace, and 2, I would prefer to be here. It's DFS and Chill, and I've never been on a broadcast that's just as smooth sailing as it is, and I would imagine it's all because of you and your hosting ability. So again, no other place I'd rather be on Championship Sunday than with you and hopefully Kyra.
Well, there you go. And she should be here any second now. And I'll get you the payment for those compliments here in just a little bit. But no, as we mentioned, Chris opened the show with us. We had him again in the middle of the season. It was actually, I was looking exactly a month ago today. I think we actually had you on the show last, or maybe 2 months ago. But regardless, we have 2 games, Cincinnati and Kansas City. The divisional matchup of Rams versus San Francisco. It's going to be a great one. How I broke the showdown, and I was hoping Kyra was going to be able to sneak in here before we got started, but how I broke the showdown is very similar to what we did last week. I had these guys list player fade for quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, and defenses, basically all the 1Z positions, because I want to just know if they agree, if they disagree, and I'll have them talk about it. And then they're really going to dig deep into their favorite plays at wide receiver and backup running back. And I am going to start, just because Kyra's not here yet, and it's kind of my favorite topic, and so we can talk about it a little bit. We're going to start with the defenses. So you guys both have the Bengals as a fade based on points they're going to allow. The 49ers are a play. The Rams are a play, and the Chiefs are a play, which is interesting, mainly because of what the Bengals gave up last week. But I want to start with the 49ers because you guys have it listed as a low-scoring game, and Kyra straight up had them listed as her favorite. And it makes a lot of sense, except are we not afraid of the Rams offense getting loose?
Not necessarily. And see, when it comes to a game like this, right? Hey, Hutch is in the comments. Hey, Hutch. Hey, Kyra. When you talk about defenses, DSTs on a slate like this, it's really just moving them around 1 through 4. I've never looked at any player on this slate, especially defenses. Nothing's a fade to me. And again, I told you before we went live here, I know everybody's not like me. No, everybody's not a weirdo who max enters and looks at this thing, from a 10,000-foot view. But to me, I do think that the 49ers defense is in the best spot here because it's a low-scoring game. And when you look at Matthew Stafford, and is he, how can I put this, right? We loved him here in Detroit, and then last week, I thought the game was scripted. I would imagine a lot of other folks thought the same thing. But is Cam Akers in his own head? Is there going to be fumbles? And regardless, the San Francisco 49ers defense has kind of pushed them through on this playoff push here. If you notice, Jimmy G, I don't think he's thrown a touchdown at all through the length of this playoffs here. So to me, it's been all about Fred Warner just buzzing around sideline to sideline here. So if we're talking, just throw the points for and the points against out. A lot of folks get too deep in with their defenses and, the opposing team is going to score 30 points. Well, to be honest with you, none of that matters if there's going to be turnovers or sacks or tackles for losses. So I will say this, FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever you're using, just double check the scoring information here because that's again, kind of like, not to throw out another sport, but in hockey, goalies, the goalie can give up 5 goals but still come ahead at the end of the game with 20 points because he's stopping shots. So same thing with DSTs today in football here. It's all about those other things, those sacks, those passes deflected, fumble recoveries, things, tackles for loss here. So I don't look at a slate like this as the opposing defense. Are they going to give up 30 points? None of that, really entertains me. It's all about the defensive, the talent here, and are they going to get in and get their hands on the football? Are they going to sack some people? And for that fact, I like San Francisco the best in a case here where I don't know, is Stafford going to be a little shaky? Is it light's going to be too bright? Who knows? But I absolutely love the 49ers DST today.
There you go. See what happens, Kyra? You show up late, and I make the show start on defense and special teams.
Seriously, I was like, what did I just walk into? And Chris loves to call me Kyra for some reason. I have no idea why.
We're gonna get him there.
Pronounce it for me here. I'm gonna write it down phonetically
Kyra.
as we speak.
Kyra. Whatever you want to say. I'll answer
3 times on the show. Still our favorite guest. Can't get the host.
Thank you.
Right?
You could call me Christ or whatever you want. Just take out the H.
We talk all the time. Still somehow can't get my name.
Kyra, say hello to the people.
But what's going on, guys? How we doing today?
I'm great.
We're doing good. All right, I'm feeling it. Guys, I can't lie, though. It kind of feels weird that this is like the last DFS and Chill of the season. I don't know if it's like really hit me yet, that we're going to be pretty much sitting ducks for 6 months, just waiting for this to come back.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll soak up this last little bit of football that we have. We'll get it while we can. And I know that Chris somehow, some way is going to keep us entertained and busy all off season. He's doing DFS for any and every sport.
Sport.
truly an overachiever you are, Chris, and all around stand-up guy. So I'm super stoked for you to close out the podcast with me today and talk some DFS.
Yeah. I do want to throw myself under the bus real quick because Chris already kind of gave me, and I say a hard time. Chris is too nice to give anyone a hard time. But I made these guys pick player fade, and I think Kyra and Chris have the same debate with me, is that there's only 4 teams. You're not really fading anybody, but that's the categories I made them put it into because I'm an amateur and I don't know what I'm doing. But that's kind of where we stand at this point. So I'm going to give a rundown and then they're going to tell me why what I say is wrong. So we're going to start with quarterback. Joe Burrow, you guys both have as a play. Not really a big surprise. Matt Stafford, you both have as a play. Not a big surprise. Patrick Mahomes, Chris put it best. Don't be stupid, of course. But I want to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo because, Kyra, you put him as a fade because I made you. And, Chris, you said in a certain percentage of rosters you would play him. What is our confidence? Chris, you kind of just said about the lack of touchdown passes out of Jimmy Garoppolo. So I'm going to start with you, Chris. What is our confidence that Jimmy Garoppolo scores 2 touchdowns today, 3 touchdowns today, something along those lines?
Well, here's the thing here, and I'm just at a certain point when you're broadcasting or you're just playing with yourself at home, playing DFS with yourself, when you're playing all this stuff, at certain points you have to kind of trust I'm trying to recover from that, but you're laughing in my face.
I had water in my mouth. I had to protect the keyboard.
I don't know if I did that on purpose or not, but when you look at it, you got to learn to trust your gut, trust your chest or your feelings here when we go through it. And there's something, pulling me in the direction of Jimmy G this afternoon here. And when you look at, let me flip the page here. When you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, the Rams first overall against opposing quarterbacks in a single game slate, he might be fadeable here, but in these 2 games in 4 teams here, I think we're looking at a case here where not a ton of completions, 18, I think 20 completions would be a stretch. About 220 yards, and that's admirable. That's pretty solid here. But I think he's going to have to rely on what they've been doing, their defense, and just feeding Eli Mitchell the ball or some sort of carries from Debo Samuel. Every time you pitch it to Debo and he takes it to the house, the quarterback doesn't get any statistical information or anything for that here. But to me, I'm just throwing this out there. I know I pulled a clip from my NFC DFS video where we have to respect Jimmy Garoppolo because I'm telling you this, only 2 games here. Everybody's going to be on Patrick Mahomes, rightfully so. Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow. The percentage of folks that are starting those 3 quarterbacks are going to be through the roof. And such a small slate like it is today, that there is literally little to no edge to be gained. And I think there is just a little bit of an inkling of an edge to be had here with Jimmy Garoppolo. And who's to say he's been lying in wait all these playoffs? They're finally in the NFC Championship game. And is this where he's going to just go nuts? 2 touchdown passes, 1 on the ground. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but honestly, I don't want to miss out if this is the game where that happens here. So just better safe than sorry. And yeah, I love Jimmy G this afternoon.
All right, Kyra, do you, again, you put him in the fade column, but that's because I'm a jerk and made it very black or white.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Jimmy G as well?
Yeah, so I understand Chris's point 100%, especially in those big tournaments, you got to get different somehow because there is only 4 teams that we're working with here. And I know that, I think that Jimmy G's ownership came in at like 1.6%. It's like really low, like shockingly low. And we're never excited to play him. We're not excited to play him.
Now that's crazy. When you were dealing with 4 quarterbacks and he is coming in below 5% projected rostership, that's nuts.
We're not excited about Jimmy when there's 32 quarterbacks to pick from on the roster. You know what I mean? So when you've got guys, with names like Stafford, Burrow, and Mahomes, it makes sense that people want to fade him. I mean, it is very, he's just not an exciting quarterback to play. I don't see how he's going to be the QB1 on this slate or has that even that potential, especially we haven't seen him throw a touchdown since week 18. He's done none in the playoffs, none whatsoever. But I totally get Chris's point. I guess it's a little contradictory of me to say, hey, fade Jimmy G, but let's face it, seriously, nobody's playing him. So if you want to get different, if you want to get any leverage, any advantage, you could hope that, Jimmy G is sufficient enough that hopefully he gets, you would hope he'd get one touchdown here in this playoffs and does throw for, 200 plus yards. Maybe he gets you 17, 18 DraftKings points. Okay. And then he's cheap enough that you can fill out your lineup in other ways with players that have way more upside that maybe you could fill in the blanks there, or you could just hope that for some unknown reason that Chiefs Bengals game doesn't end up being this huge fireworks event so that it's not all that different. You don't get absolutely, buried by Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow.
And Garoppolo's salary, and I don't dig into it like you guys do, but I imagine his salary is going to give you the flexibility to play some studs at some other positions that starting Mahomes wouldn't do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to see where he's at here. How much is he on DraftKings? 5,400. So he's pretty dirt cheap. 6,600 Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes 7,400. So it's a $2,000 difference from Patrick Mahomes and nearly a little bit over $1,000 from Joe Burrow. So it depends. Crazier things have happened. Thank you, Kelly.
I was going to say, I don't normally throw comments on the screen that don't have to do with DFS, but Kelly's the only person who would ever give this comment. Our normal DFS crowd isn't going to be out here complimenting eye makeup. So Kelly,
I appreciate this.
Down and Kyra bringing the straight fire with eye makeup, apparently.
Eye makeup in fantasy football. It's just what I do.
No one has complimented my eye makeup in 18 weeks of this show, but I won't get into my bitterness with that. So
I'll get you a makeup artist. I'll have your wife over there help you out.
My wife knows what she's doing. We're going to jump to running backs. Joe Mixon is a play. Eli Mitchell is a play. Chris, you just put workload will be there. I might have you clarify that a little bit. Cam Akers is the one I want to talk about. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I found interesting. You both prefer Jerick McKinnon. So we're going to talk a little bit about everybody but Joe Mixon. And I do just mean a little bit, but Chris, I want to start with you. Kyra, you have Eli as a play. That's good enough for me. But what do you mean by workload will be there? Are you worried about production? Or are you just pretty positive it'll be volume? Or
I think it's going to be volume, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I have this feeling that this game, the Rams and San Francisco, it's going to be a slower grind out, just eat clock kind of thing with both Akers and Eli Mitchell. I have Eli Mitchell literally around 18 plus carries in this one. You're looking at, what do I have? 18 carries, 80 yards, a couple receptions here. So I think we're going to get into a case here where, of course, Stafford will bury one in the end zone or some sort of deep shot to Cooper Kupp or Van Jefferson. But I love the idea of kind of, not to say taking it out of Jimmy G's hands here, but kind of, shoring up the field here. And the decision making will not have to be like such a fast paced thing where Eli Mitchell will just grab the ball 18 times. I think 20 is even realistic too. I know not a lot of folks agree with me on that one, but I just think the volume will be there for Eli. And we've seen that this kid is talented. He's, his rookie season, he's kind of slippery. He's elusive here. So I love the idea of Eli Mitchell just based on a volume standpoint.
Oh, there you go. Now, Kyra, I'm going to jump to you again and see if I painted you in a corner here. Do you truly feel Cam Akers is a fade? Because Chris, this was actually the one that started the discussion with me and Chris at the beginning of the show, that nobody's really a fade in this sort of situation. Is Cam Akers a full fade to you, or is this one where you work him into some lineups, or is he someone you wouldn't even try to find in?
No, this is generally somebody that I've kept out of almost all of my lineups, to be honest with you, because like the Cam Akers story is awesome. I think it's great that he's back, but I think that he'll be good for next year, but right now I'm just not excited to play him. It seems like they rushed him back, and we saw it last week where he has the rust on him, or he's still not 100%. The 2 fumbles last week, he's just amongst the running backs on this slate. Honestly, I could see them maybe getting Sony Michel a little bit more involved in this game just because they saw how last week went for them, and he's just healthier. You know what I mean? So at this point, I think that he's going to be sharing touches. I don't think he's going to carry the workload in this entire game, especially if the Rams continue to stink versus the 49ers like they have the last 6 times that they played each other. Maybe we don't see him as beneficial to this offense as, what Kupp, Higbee, and OBJ is going to be today. I think that Matt Stafford is going to do a lot of that offense is going to have to be done through the air. I don't really see a way for Cam Akers to break this slate or like be one of the top running backs on the slate. I just don't see how. The 49ers defense is stout against the run too, on top of that.
Now, one of my favorite things about having Chris on the show is Chris does the show sheet super fast. He's one of the only people to ever beat Kyra on the show sheet. But Chris lives DFS so much that I think he changes his own mind sometimes, because when I talked about Cam Akers, Chris straight up said to me, I don't know what I put on the show sheet, but I love him. And I'm like, okay, you put risky. So, Chris, talk about Cam Akers.
Well, with Cam Akers, maybe earlier in the week, to be honest with you, any show sheet, especially this one, I try and fill it out early. You know, as soon as you're like, hey, we're going to have you on, I try and fill it out just based on my gut off the top of my head, because a lot of the DFS decisions I've made over the years have been heavily, reliant on just making a snap decision. This is what I see, and boom, I'm gone. But then as the week progresses and I dig in here, I look at what I have for his total workload, carries, yardage, all that stuff here. And with Cam Akers, I think we're going to know seriously within the first drive or not what the Rams kind of plan to do with him and or Sonny Michel. After last week, those fumbles were awful, right? Late in the fourth quarter, he fumbles and he was, visibly bummed out. And then after the game, Matt Gay kicks the field goal. You could see he was like, he breathed, a fresh air of relief, or however you want to put it here. But to me, personally, I think they give Cam Akers the rock early and often. Get your head right, kid. We're in the NFC Championship game. Last week it's not even a factor. I mean, there is no tomorrow when it comes to today. So I see a case here where Cam Akers, 17, 18 carries. We're looking at 70 plus yards, a couple receptions. But where my research and all the DVP and all those numbers, I mean, it can get exhausting here, took me to Sonny Michel as well. Last week, Sonny, what did he have? I don't even think he had 1 or 2 carries. I mean, he was literally non-existent in that game. And I think Sonny Michel sees upwards of 10 plus carries in this one. So I'm looking at a potentially, literally 29 to 30 carries combined between both these guys here. So just another factor in me when I'm saying this game is just going to be grinded out on the ground in a way, but Stafford will take a shot or two. But I actually love Cam Akers. When you look at his price tag, let me bring it up here, $6,200 on FanDuel, only $5,000 on DraftKings. San Francisco, 3rd overall against running backs. But again, DVP at this point in the season doesn't really matter, because what other options do we have here? So yeah, I'm starting Cam Akers in fairly a lot of spots.
It makes perfect sense. I don't want to dig too much into Jerick McKinnon, because I'm sure you guys are going to talk about him in our little Get Different segment at the very end. But you both like Jerick McKinnon more. And Chris, I know you won't call anybody a fade this week, but does that put CEH in a lower percentage of your rosters because of your preference for McKinnon?
No, and maybe I should have opened the broadcast with this here. Yeah, there's certain players I like and there's certain stacks I like, but to me, it's not even really about the player's name. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon. I mean, I'm combing through every combo. It's literally like a puzzle. It's like a million, puzzle piece here. And to me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire he's a massive play. Cincinnati 21st overall against running backs. He's just, the price tag fits. You look at what it is. Well, let me bring it up here real quick. Yeah, $5,700 on FanDuel, only $5,300 on DraftKings. To be honest with you, I love the combo of both Jerick McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a lot of lineups here. And I'm not talking single game lineups. I'm talking, the whole slate here. So to me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is absolutely in play. I'm looking at 10 carries, 55, 60 yards here, 3-4 targets, couple, receptions here. So to me, nobody's really a fade here. So, when you fill out the show document here, you kind of just mix and match it around here. But like big picture, I could talk anybody into everybody on the slate, or I could talk everybody into fading everybody. It's just one of those days here, personal preference. And I will say, maybe this journey I'm on with building 150 lineups, hand-built lineups, is kind of it's pulled me in the wrong direction here, because I just think everybody is an option here because the stat combos and the percentages here. So maybe next time I won't do that.
Well, and I don't even think that's necessarily the thing, though, because you're going to have different types of DFS players. And you've brought up many times, not everybody is building 150 lineups, but you have to be right. And you have to understand that anything can happen at any certain moment, especially with these 4-player matchups. It is just putting the right puzzle together. The person who wins $1 million today is going to be the person who tweaked the right puzzle pieces and figured out that Byron Pringle is going to score 3 touchdowns or some weird shit like that's going to happen. And even though it left them with $1,800 in salary cap, which looks terrifying, they put Byron Pringle in their lineup. And there's just little things like that. So you're absolutely right, where no one's necessarily a fade. But my question to you is, Kyra, Clyde Edwards-Helaire only played, I think, 33 or 32% of the snaps last week. Do we see that as knocking the rust off and being more involved against that bad Cincinnati run defense this week?
Yeah, I would say that a little bit of that, like, he's coming back after being injured. And I think that what the reason why I love McKinnon so much is like he still gets the targets. He still works the passing downward. You know what I mean? So Clyde Edwards-Helaire could work as like their workhorse, and you can see Jerick McKinnon operating as nearly their like wide receiver 3. So I like the idea of putting them both in the lineup because, yeah, I mean, he's still going to see his action. I think that he'll be playing a little bit more than what he did last week. And I think McKinnon was playing so well that, they were able to do that. So, yeah, I don't feel like CH is like a fade for me at all. It's just that I prefer McKinnon for a little bit cheaper just because I like the secured passing. I like the PPR points.
Makes perfect sense. Tight ends, you guys literally have everyone as a fade, so I'm just going to have a little fun with this, and it's probably not the right question to ask. But all things considered, you're building a lineup. Salary is included in your equation. Chris, who is the one tight end you want in your master lineup this week?
Well, to be honest with you, I have 2, if you don't mind. It's got to be Tyler Higbee, to be fair, or even George Kittle. When you look at it, obviously, I keep looking away because I have like 3-4 notebooks.
I say my man runs the notebooks everywhere.
Yeah, so. And I got my little one here for hockey and baseball here. But when you look at Travis Kelce, I mean, Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce. Don't be silly. But Kelce, $7,700 on FanDuel, 6.5 on DraftKings. I mean, the next cheapest tight end is George Kittle, only $5,800 on FanDuel and only $5,000 on DraftKings. I mean, if that's not, neon lights here in, big game, big player in a big game, he's going to show up big time. And again, I love his mentality of just like a wrestler at the Royal Rumble, just carrying people. But to me personally, I think I've seen enough from Stafford and Tyler Higbee where I want all in on Tyler Higbee. As I said, Frisco's 8th overall against the tight ends. Higbee, $5,500 on FanDuel, only $3,700 on DraftKings here. And what I love about Higbee here, and I'm sure you might mention it as well here, they're getting creative with him. In a few weeks back, he was it wasn't even a factor, not even on the field. And now they're throwing screen passes to the guy. They're running quick slants inside the red zone. So these high upside targets, in a game here where points, to be fair, are going to be at a minimum. I just absolutely love Tyler Higbee, and it goes without saying it, with George Kittle as well.
Yeah. And I will never fault you for naming 2 players when I ask you to name one, because I work with Kyra every week, and I know that's how the rules go.
Realistically, I wrote down every tight end that's going to be active on the field today. I have written down in my notes and their price tag, so I could have made a case. And I'm not kidding here. I could make a case for Noah Gray or Blake Bell. Of the 2, I'd prefer Blake Bell. Cincinnati, 29th overall against tight ends. You know what that means for Kelce.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, Kyra, who's your one guy? Are you paying all the way up for Kelce, or would it be one of the cheaper options?
No, I kind of have the same thought process as Chris does on that, because, I mean, I could get George Kittle for $1,500 less, and I think that he could put up a similar stat line, if not better. He's done well in the past versus the 49ers. It's not like he's not like he was the last couple of weeks where we were just like, yeah, he's like unplayable. Like, we've seen him a lot more involved in this game last week. There was one play where he just completely missed the ball, or he dropped it or something. His stat line last week could have looked a lot better. Would have had a lot more people on, probably would have changed his salary on DraftKings, FanDuel. So yeah. And I mean, Tyler Higbee, he seems to have a safe floor. He's put up 40 yards plus since week 13. He has a 19% target share in the offense, and it's not too bad. It's really just the Cup, OBJ, and Higbee show. You haven't really seen much out of like Van Jefferson or anything. He's kind of been the odd man out. So, I mean, Higbee, he's not a world beater. We don't think of him like, Travis Kelce or George Kittle, and his touchdown upside is like kind of probably why we feel that way. But, the good news is that out of the 5 touchdowns that he had this year, 3 of them came versus the 49ers. So we're looking at him paying at a pretty good value if he were to even just get 1 touchdown in this game.
There you go. I don't think we need to spend much time on the defense. We opened the show with it. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and as we did last week, wide receivers and backup running backs are really going to make or break your lineup this week. They've talked to you a lot about the chalk that you're going to see at quarterback, so you can get very different with Jimmy Garoppolo. We talked about tight end. They're all playable. The wide receivers and running backs give you the most options. And the first thing we're going to start with is, what is your favorite play of the week? And Kyra, I'm going to start with you. Of course, you have all of them, but
I had a bunch listed just because there was some that I just kept, like, I couldn't get them out of my lineup. So
yeah, and I love that. That's good to know, because it's going to let people know a common stack they might be going against, especially if they're going like head to head and things like that.
Right, and these names are going to be chalky. They're high value, but there's 4 games on the slate, so this is just what it is. There's not a lot of sneaky picks that I'm just like in love with, But for me, it's definitely Jamar Chase. I mean, last time versus the Chiefs, he single-handedly whooped my ass out of some fantasy football playoffs. He had 12 targets, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns. Holy shit. It was, it was his breakout game. And I just want to give credit to Jordan Vanek. He's my DFS stat man. Every week he has these great tweets that he does. And I'll just summarize kind of how the stats read and save you some time. But essentially, the defense that Kansas City runs is one where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase just thrive in. And he's in all of my lineups this week for sure. I can see him, maybe he's not going to have the same blow up game, but he's going to get the opportunities. He's going to be a big part of this game today. So you got to have Jamar Chase in your lineups. I also understand if you want to play devil's advocate and put in T. Higgins, I think he's going to have a great game too. Another favorite play this week is going to be Debo Samuel. He's just a ram killer. I mean, I think that something flipped a switch in his head when Aaron Donald acted like he didn't know who Debo was. There was like an interview or something. He's like, "Who's Debo Samuel?" And ever since that moment, he has made him pay for it over and over. He has a super high ceiling, and it really takes no convincing about why you should play Debo. But every time he plays the Rams, I think that he kind of just has like a extra special vendetta against them, where he just wants to do well because don't ever forget who I am kind of mentality. You know what I mean? And of course, the other for me, running back wise, is Joe Mixon. I mean, other than Elijah Mitchell, he has the safest and probably most secure RB1 solidified role on the slate for these running backs. And in a game that should set off fireworks, I want exposure to those running backs. And I think that he could have a good game today going up against the Chiefs.
Perfect. Talk to me about your favorite player, Chris.
Yeah, to be honest with you, my favorite stack is exactly, what Kyra said here. Did I get it right? I wrote it down for Kyra. Kyra, yeah. It is actually the Cincinnati Bengals, and I wouldn't be, I already did it, take it a step further and literally use all 3 Cincinnati Bengal wide receivers in your lineups here. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd with Joe Burrow at quarterback. And then again, as we talked about it, move the puzzle pieces around where you can remove Boyd and put in CJ Uzma. Then you can remove, you know what I mean? Then remove T. Higgins, back goes Boyd and CJ Uzma. So it's about moving all this stuff around here. But honestly, again, Debo Samuel, even Brandon Ayuk, who was literally non-existent last week, only $5,600 on FanDuel, and even $5,000 on DraftKings. Just a kind of a plus matchup. Rams are 22nd overall against opposing wide receivers. But honestly, anybody out there that's just entering 10 or even 20 lineups, right? Just a few lineups here. You need to get really different off the map here. I love the idea of stacking both Byron Pringle, and Juan Jennings here. Juan Jennings is kind of, has he worked himself up in the pecking order in this offense? Absolutely. Same could be said for Byron Pringle, even more so. In that Kansas City offense, obviously it's all about Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and then it's kind of, open for discussion because, McKinnon has come out of nowhere, but Byron Pringle, in all honesty here, I think he's worked himself up in like 3rd, maybe 4th in that pecking order there. And anytime you can get, that high up in some sort of offense or pecking order with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, absolutely. Pringle, $5,700 on FanDuel, only $4,300 on DraftKings. And another little combo I like to add here, it's got to be Van Jefferson and OBJ. When you look at Cooper Kupp, no brainer. It's a sure thing. He's as easy as it gets here on the slate here. But again, $9,700 on FanDuel, $8,800 on DraftKings. Do you even want me to tell you what his captain spot price is on DraftKings? Literally, you're going to have to remortgage your home. He's $18,300 in the captain spot on DraftKings here. So if you want to get a little sneaky and fade Cooper Kupp, is it wise? Probably not. But can it maybe move mountains and make you a couple bucks here? Yeah, go with Odell Beckham Jr. and Van Jefferson. So there's just a ton of little combos here, and I try and emphasize that or get that out to people. And sometimes I not lose faith, but I lose effort effort because it's just nonstop here. But to me, you can't really go wrong. It's just about your combinations of stacks here. So don't be afraid to get crazy. Don't be afraid to start 4 players from the same team in multiple lineups here.
Yes.
There's literally, you have nothing to lose when you're building that way.
Perfect segue, and we didn't even rehearse this before the show. Chris, you shared with us kind of how you were starting your 150 lineups. But let's assume someone has enough money to throw 4 lineups out there. Would your recommendation be to build a 4-player stack for each team?
Absolutely, and if I'm sure you know, but I have them. I have about 75 of them written down here, and it's easy peasy. You know, a 10-year-old kid could do this here. And one of my favorite stacks, as I said moments ago, you write down every team, and then boom, the 4 players that you want. And to me, it's about Burrow, Mixon, Chase, and T. Or you can get rid of Mixon, and then you got Burrow and all 3 wide receivers here. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, it's the trio. It's Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce, and then you're able to move in and out. You get one line with those 3, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You get the same line, and you put McKinnon in there, Byron Pringle. I mean, so you're moving it around. In Frisco, I built a ton of San Francisco lines with Jimmy G as the 4th player and a few without him along the lines of Eli Mitchell, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. I love that 4-man San Francisco lineup, and then you could put Joe Burrow in there and maybe fit in T. Higgins, CJ Uzma, however you want to do it. And then when you talk about the Rams, first and foremost, it goes Stafford, Akers, Kupp, Higbee. Then you could do away with Cam Akers, put Sony Michel in there, get rid of Higbee, it just goes on and on and on. And everything that I'm saying right now, my brain is going a mile a minute. That's why I write it all down, because as soon as a thought comes into my head, boom, it's gone. So I write it down before it escapes me.
I say Kelly, who's fast becoming our #1 fan, is giving shout outs to the notebooks at this point. So you know you love that. Now, Kyra, in that situation with a 4-player stack, is your goal to look for different games at your other positions, or would you do bringbacks and bring people who make sense from the other team? Is that your priority when building?
I mean, I think it depends on the player that you could fit in there, but I would probably be looking to bring back. I'd probably be just looking at how do I think, it's that idea where you paint a story again. Which game do I find that's going to be scoring the most points, have the most opportunities, something like that, So for me, it's obviously going to be the Chiefs-Bengals game. I think it's a great idea to stack, bring back there. Or if you want, I can understand wanting to fit in a Debo in your lineup. I can understand wanting to get Cooper Kupp in your lineup, and that's not a bad idea. You know what I mean? They're probably going to have a good game. But I see that game being a lot more of a defensive battle and not fireworks as opposed to the Chiefs-Bengals game. So, yeah, I mean, it's always situational, you know what I mean? But I would probably be looking to bring back. If I had a Bengals stack, most definitely would be looking to bring back with Chiefs.
Yep. I kind of warned everybody at the beginning of the show with a 4-team slate. I didn't think this was going to come close to an hour show. We are at the deep sea dive segment. And Chris, I love what you did where you put a lot of different combos and you've talked a lot about them. And Kyra, you kind of said you would echo a lot of his combos. Mm-hmm. So honestly, for the next couple of minutes, why don't you guys just talk about your favorite non-chalk plays? And I know a few of these things are going to include chalk, but talk about the stacks that would make them work and just kind of tell people what you would be thinking about building lineups here.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of mentioned him a little bit was Juan Jennings. I think that a lot of people aren't even thinking about him, but we need some low-dollar dart throws out there. And last time they played the Rams, he went off. He had 6 receptions, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had his 3rd highest snap percentage of the year last week. So he's not a bad dart throw. He's a good idea to get in your lineup. Like I said, Sony Michel was somebody that was another dart throw to me. Akers is clearly struggling, and maybe after last week's poor performance, the 2 fumbles, we might see more of a committee. And like I said, Michel's just the healthier running back right now, and he's able to put up production. And, God forbid, we don't wish on it, but what if Cam Akers gets hurt? You have Sony Michel in your lineup. No one's playing him, and he could give you a huge advantage. And then same Jerick McKinnon, somebody that I really liked, since he allows the 5th most receptions to opposing running backs. And McKinnon essentially has operated as like the Chiefs wide receiver 3. He has 13 targets over the last 2 weeks. I said I don't mind putting in CH, but I do prefer getting McKinnon in my lineup over him. I just think it's safe with the targets there.
Yeah, Chris, you had some really nice combos in yours as well.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, when you're building so many lines, and it's just taking your entire week's worth of time here, you can only go so far. I wrote down about 20 stacks from each team, and they all consist of realistically the same player, the same 5-6 players, just moving them around here. But if you want to dig a little bit deep here, when you get to a certain point, just mind you, I want to preface this by saying I'm looking at like about 100 lines I've built, with the same 4 or 5 players from each team. But the last 75, I'm adding players in like Samaje Perine, the rookie Chris Evans, Darrell Williams, if he is active. He was late minute scratch last week. Or what about, a guy like, let me bring it up here, like a guy like Kyle Juszczyk. I mean, this guy is just, I don't want to say he's underutilized, but he has little to no fantasy value, seasonal or DFS here. I mean, he's only $1,600 on DraftKings in the single game slate. And again, you're only looking at 1 or 2 carries, 1 or 2 receptions. But if you notice the way they use Juszczyk, he's a fullback, obviously. He blocks first and foremost, but they will let him go out and run routes here. So would it shock anybody if you put in an anytime touchdown bet on Kyle Juszczyk and it hit at the tail end of some kind of parlay here? So those are the kind of things where even if you look up their projection, it's 0.0. It really is 0.0, like Blutarski from, National Lampoon's College Vacation. But when you look at this thing, it's what it takes, man. Because when you stack up like a Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Hill, Tyreek, it'll fit with Cam Akers and OBJ here, and then boom, you're left with little to no money left over. There's no harm in getting Chris Evans in your lineup here, the rookie, 1 or 2 carries. I think he returns kicks, which counts on FanDuel, if I'm not mistaken here. And what about the 2 young Kansas City tight ends here? So, I mean, if we're going to get wild and off the map here, Ross Dwelley in San Francisco, their tight end. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and they are as dirt cheap as it gets here. And again, everybody forgets about McCole Hardman, but we saw what he did last week. Once this guy got the ball on the sideline, boom, he was gone. And again, Byron Pringle kind of passed him up. Tyreek Hill commands attention. All these big names command attention here. But in a case here, why not put in a line with Hardman, Van Jefferson Jr., and Juan Jennings, all wide receivers on their team, which are kind of an afterthought. And then in that case, you're able to put in Joe Mixon, Eli Mitchell, and then Patrick Mahomes wherever you want. So the last few lines I'm building when we're done with this broadcast are going to be of the variety where I literally leave $15,000 on the table on FanDuel just in case lines. I'm going to put in 120 lines how I want it, and then the last few are just going to be every single player is going to be a dart throw just in case.
And I think that's kind of how I was going to end the show. Was I just wanted you guys, and I'll start with you, Kyra, just your thoughts on building lineups on a very small slate with a ton of chalky players. What would be a couple of key pieces of advice you could give to people who are watching this show who can't build 150 lineups and have every possibility?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, we want to paint that story. So if you want to make the most of it, I think that you should build lineups. Don't be afraid to stack Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and then come back to McKinnon. You could put Travis Kelce in your flex. He's a little bit cheaper. You know what I mean? Do a 2 tight end set. I don't think that anyone is going to fault you for doing that this week. I think that they all have great matchups. I also think that, I'm looking at some of the lineups that I've personally built myself. Don't necessarily, we didn't talk much about DSTs, but don't be afraid to just buy the lowest. Maybe not the lowest DST. And I really don't like the Bengals, but the 49ers is so cheap on DraftKings. And I think that their defense has a great chance to.
Yeah, Chris spent the entire opening of the show talking about the Niners.
He did, so I'll spare you that. But why not start there, put in a cheap defense? Even maybe don't, if you want. I think Tyler Higbee is just a great choice to have as a cheap tight end option, and then try to fit in some of those. Yeah, I know it's kind of contradicting to what Chris said, but fit in those high price wide receivers. Get in Debo Samuel, Jamar Chase, T Higgins, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp has been tough for me to try to fit in there in a lot of my lineups because he's priced really high.
Is he higher than the quarterbacks?
Sometimes he is. Let's see.
Yeah,
here.
I was gonna say it's got to be ridiculous this
He's
week.
9.7 on FanDuel, $8,800 on DraftKings, and he is a Yeah, he's about $1,100 more than Patrick Mahomes. Don't even get me started on the single game slate. As I said, I mean, it's astronomical, man.
Yeah.
He's 16 grand on FanDuel
and you said he's 18K to put him in the
captain spot. Yeah, he is. Yep. He is $1,500 cheaper than Patrick Mahomes, but we're talking single game slates there. So yeah, you're gonna have to. I mean, again, this is her time to speak on this, but you're gonna have to limit your exposure at some point.
You're gonna have to, just because I want to be able to fit in. I want my lineup well balanced. I don't really want to sell it all for Cooper Kupp when I think Jamar Chase could have a game like he did 3 weeks ago. You know what I mean?
And again, one thing I want to throw out, because I always feel like we put these guys in awkward situations. They're not saying Cooper Kupp's not going to have a good game or to fade Cooper Kupp. They're just saying he's too damn high. That's all it comes down to. So.
It's tough. And people are going to, I mean, he's going to be a chalky play. You know what I mean? People love Cooper Kupp. He's done fantastic this year. So people are going to find ways to fit him in. And, it's not that he's going to burn you, because he just really hasn't done that all year. It's not really his thing.
But with what you're giving up in your flex spot to afford a guy like Cooper Kupp, that's where the burn might come in. So
and I've realized here in all my lineups, I build a couple lineups too, obviously, but I do not have a ton of Cooper Kupp in them, because I am fully confident in Jamar Chase and Debo Samuel having a good enough day to make up for that, and finding some smaller key pieces like a Van Jefferson, a Juan Jennings, Tyler Boyd. I'm getting cheaper out of the Byron Pringle. You know what I mean? You want to have some of those dart throws in there, because that's what's going to give you leverage at some point.
Well, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is it sounds like ridiculous advice, but don't be afraid to not have Cooper Kupp in your lineup. It's not the worst thing in the world because of his price. So Chris, go ahead and kind of take us out. You've given us philosophy the whole damn show, and we appreciate it greatly, but just small piece of advice for people who, obviously nobody's playing their first DFS slate today, but people who don't play 150 lineups.
Yeah, to me, it's got to be, it's simple as just a process of elimination, right? As you were talking about earlier, if you're going to stack the Cincinnati Bengals, do you want to come back with Kansas City? I've been calling those an onslaught stack. I don't even know if that's coined or anything here, but I'll give you an example of a line I built and then talk, the entire method here. So I have that Joe Burrow, Mixon, Chase, and T. Higgins stack, and then I ran it back with both Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, and Travis Kelce. And then, so to me, the process of elimination, well, I can get a DST from the San Francisco Rams game. Which one do I like better? So that same lineup entered twice, one with the Rams DST, one with the San Francisco 49ers DST. So it's just a process of elimination as you're building. And if you're only going to play, 10 or 20 slates today, God love you. I mean, I wanted to do that as well, but here we are. And when you look at it, just keep it simple. If you're going to be in $1, $2, even a $5 single entry here, keep it simple. Not looking for the whole pie. I'm just looking for a little sliver of the pie here, in a way here. So keep it simple. You don't necessarily have to go 4-man stacks. I mean, that's another topic for another broadcast where you go 2-2-2-2 or 4-3. I mean, they're like defense alignments here. So keep it simple. And to be honest with you, we're all going to be home or wherever you are watching these games. Build the lineup as you see fit to cheer for the games. I mean, you're only looking at a couple bucks spent here. So if you're into Joe Burrow and you hate Patrick Mahomes because he beat your Bills here, then fade Patrick Mahomes. There's no real wrong way to build it here. I can just talk myself in circles here, but just do as you see fit from your most entertainment benefit here, I guess.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. Build what you want to see happen and get to be doubly happy. Why the hell not?
Yes.
Guys, that's it. This was the 19th episode of DFS and Chill. We made it through an entire season. We only missed a couple of shows. We are going to be back with a vengeance next year. Kyra's going to be smashing work with Fantasy Pros because it's what she does. Please follow Kyra. Please follow Chris. Our guest this season, I'll put out a tweet later on, probably from the Club Fantasy handle, just thanking all of the guests. And these are people you should be following with DFS. But like I said, we're done till week 1 next year, but you should still hit subscribe on the channel. We do shows every Wednesday. Right now, we are recapping last season. We're going to hit tight ends in the upcoming week, and then we're going to start getting into free agency and all that kind of fun stuff. So you still want to hit subscribe. And plus, we do giveaways every time we hit milestone. Josh bought way too many autographed jerseys, and now we have to give them all away. So Kyra, well, no, let's start with Chris. I apologize. I have my notes here and I'm about to go backwards. Chris, remind everyone where they can find your work, and don't be afraid to pitch your non-football work, because the football season's over, but they can still get great info from you.
Yes, thank you. You could I'm not a big plug guy. You could find me on Twitter at Detroit Beastie. You can always DM me, shoot me a message if you want to chat. I'll give you my phone number, however you want to do. But I want to tell folks, stop and take this in. I know it's the corny stop and smell the roses speech here, but this is a championship Sunday. The same people that are complaining right now, they're going to be wishing at the end of March we had football. So it's right here in front of us. Stop, rest, relax, take it all in, because again, in a month, we won't have anything. And I'm going right into NHL, DFS, and then when the baseball season comes about. And I will say briefly to both of you, thanks for having me on. It's always just a great time here. I appreciate it, just bouncing weird ideas off of each other here. And so thank you very much. This has been unbelievably fun the entire season.
Yeah, yes. I think I can speak for Kyra on it being our pleasure. Josh did throw out Keenan Allen's up next when we hit 350 subs. So we're working our way there. You want that Keenan Allen jersey? I might have to create some fake accounts and see if I can win this thing, since they gave away my Chris Godwin jersey. So
I'll put it next to my autographed Swift jersey. I won that in a contest I don't even remember entering, to be honest with you. So.
That's awesome. Kyra, final parting words for the people.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for supporting us and making this season special. We'll be back next year better than ever. So excited for what's in store for DFS and Chill. I've had such a good time doing it this year. And of course, I want to thank Chris for rocking with us several times this season, and all of our guests and all the future guests to come. It's been awesome. And to all the new people who started watching this year, your support has meant a ton to us, and my DMs are open all year long. And I look forward to having you all back next year. And of course, while DFS and Chill does take a seat for 6 months, I'll be still active over on Fantasy Pros, writing on some redraft and dynasty stuff. So stay tuned for that. I'm not only limited to just DFS, believe it or not. But yeah, today for me, it's go Rams and go Chiefs.
Absolutely. You know what? I put you guys on the spot last week, and I didn't this week. So Kyra, you gave the winners. Chris, who are your winners today?
I think I have it all written down, but screw that. I'm going to go from my gut. What I wrote down is all it's nerd analytics and all that stuff. So to me, I hope to see Cincinnati playing Matthew Stafford in the Super Bowl. Stafford always will be my QB1. Great dude, great man. And how great would it be for the city of Cincinnati? They made it this far, gives me hope for my Detroit Lions. So let's go Burrow and let's go Stafford, baby.
I was going to say, and then Stafford being there gives Detroit hope in some secondary way as well. So I absolutely love it. Guys, you got about an hour left to set lineups. We appreciate you. Good luck this week. Go build 150 lineups. Go build 15. Just make sure you build them the way you want to see today go. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.